Good morning to all. Welcome to another section of this online class. So today we will be dealing the paper Indian Writing in English and the chapter which is the Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. by Nissim Ezekiel. So in the last class we discussed about the author's details, then just an outline to this poem. So today we will be dealing with this poem itself from the page number 17 onwards in the textbook. So this poem is basically a satire, especially on the ordinary use of English by the Indians, and the narrator in this poem, who is likely a man, he uses the Babu English, which is quite interesting as the use of the Hindustani dialect and manners in it. So the Babu English, the term Babu English means just a form of dialect which denotes to show the use of this ordinary form of this English language and how the humor in it. So this poem is very typical in nature, in which the Indianness inherent in the very title of this poem itself. So the title, which is the Goodbye Party of this for the Miss Pushpa T.S. means the term Goodbye Party is not at all a very apt term for the title, in which it is very in a very good manner we can use the term farewell party for Miss Pushpa T.S. But the poet uses the term Goodbye Party in order to signify the nature of the poem, in which it is just a satire on the Indianness of this, or the use of this ordinary use of English during that time. So the poem, the title itself signifies this just an misorder of this use of this language. So then the occurrence of these initials and at the end of the name, in which Miss Pushpa T.S. it's a typical name only used in India, because the other countries the initials are usually in front of the name. So it is another important point while we discuss the importance of this title, and a very Indian habit both in speech and writing. This is very common thing while writing and in the speech itself. And this Goodbye Party also it is an imitation for the birthday party. So this is regarding some aspects of this poem, the title and the content of this poem. And in this poem Nissim Ezekiel narrates an incident when a woman, which is the Miss Pushpa, is supposed to leave India, and her colleagues have masterminded a goodbye party for her. And this goodbye party is known as known by the name farewell party, and he uses the term goodbye party in order to get a clear idea about the ordinary use of this English, and it is basically a satire. So many humor things which is also can be seen in this poem. So this is regarding just an outline to this poem. And in this poem it satirizes the ideological features of English spoken by Gujarati speakers, and the chief source of laughter in this poem from the use of the faulty word order, un-English idioms and phrases, and faulty grammar, especially the incorrect use of the present progressive tense in place of the simple present tense. So these are the major things regarding the content of this poem. And also the humor in this poem is derived only when the poem is looked at from the perspective of standard or the native speakers of English. And to an average Indian speaker of English, this poem is very good in manner, but for us it is very in a way we can see that while discussing this poem we can see that the poem is very the lines and the word order and all the grammar, everything is not at all good, or it is an disorder things. So this is regarding this poem. So in the poem which is from the page number 70 onwards, we will go by line of this poem. So the first line from the first 4 lines lines. This poem has 40 above lines in this poem, and we can divide this poem into different stanza. So the stanza 1, which is from the line "Friends to the Bon Voyage," this is regarded as the stanza 1 of this poem. So we discuss the first stanza of this poem. So the poem goes like this: the friends, our dear sister is departing for foreign in 2-3 days, and we are meeting today to wish her bon voyage. So this is the first 4 lines of this poem, and this is regarded as the stanza 1 of this poem. And in these lines, the speaker or the narrator of this poem, who is a man who is delivering a speech in the just an introductory speech to this farewell party, he says that he addresses the colleagues of their office, and in order to conduct a goodbye party to this Miss Pushpa T.S., and he tells them that their dear sister, who is Miss Pushpa T.S., is leaving the country, and they all have gathered to bid her goodbye. So this is the just an introduction to this poem, or the content of this poem itself. So basically this poem is a monologue, and it is a we can see that it is just a narration of an incident, which is the farewell party to Miss Pushpa T.S. And in the first stanza we get a clear idea regarding the just an introduction, the beginning of an introductory speech by the narrator itself. Then we are moving to the next stanza. Before that, there are some terms in this poem, in this first stanza, which is regarded as not apt in this manner, in which the terms like foreign, which is an adjective which is inside this common lines, and the terms like 2-3 days and we are meeting today, all these are not at all in a good manner. And the term bon voyage, which means a happy journey, it is a French term, it also used in a very wrong manner. So these are some mistakes in this first stanza itself. So we are going to the next stanza, which is stanza 2 of this poem, from the lines "you are to she is feeling." So this is stanza 2 from lines 10 to 15. So, "You are all knowing friends, what sweetness is in Miss Pushpa. I don't mean only external sweetness, but internal sweetness. Miss Pushpa is smiling and smiling, even for no reason, but simply because she is feeling." So this is regarding the some features of this Miss Pushpa T.S., and the narrator says that who is the speaker of this poem, he starts praising Miss Pushpa's sweetness, which is both internal and external, and she is beautiful not only because of her charms but her honesty, and she keeps smiling most of the time. Poet is telling us Miss Pushpa's good and amicable nature, and she always puts on a smiling face. So it is a very good feature, or the good point while discussing the character features of this Miss Pushpa T.S. And it is obvious that Nisi Messigal is ridiculing the habitual use of the continuous tense, even where it is ungrammatical and inappropriate, and also the use of word smiling in the lines is more like an intended usage. So the term smiling is considered as a use of the Indian usage, so it is not at all appropriate in this poem. So it is obvious that Nisi Messigal is ridiculing the habitual use of this continuous tense, even where it is ungrammatical and inappropriate. So this has some structural manner of this stanza 2 of this poem. In this poem, in these lines, the poet or the narrator says that while to praise this Miss Pushpa's, especially the sweetness of this Pushpa, in which both internal and external, and she is beautiful not only because of her charms but her honesty. So she was honest in her nature, and she keeps smiling most of the time. So this is another important feature of this specific character, nature of this character, and poet is telling us Miss Pushpa's good and amicable nature. So this is regarding the second stanza of this poem, and in these lines also we have some mistakes, which is just a misorder of this words, in which the second line of this poem, which is what sweetness, it is not at all good. So we can correct it by the term how. So instead of how, instead of what, we can use the how, which gives a clear idea regarding that line. So, and the use of the smiling, which is the typical use of Indian usage of this term smile. And these are the major things that we are going to focus on this stanza. So in this stanza 2, the poet or the narrator in this poem points out some good features of Miss Pushpa T.S., which includes the honesty and the smiling face of her in this office. So this is regarding the stanza 2. Now we are moving to the stanza 3. From the lines, Miss Pushpa is coming to which place? So it is the between 15th line to 20th line. So Miss Pushpa is coming from very high family. Her father was renowned advocate in Bulsar or Surat. I am not remembering now which place. So this is regarding the stanza 3. It is very short, and in this stanza the speaker continues his address at this farewell party and tells the audience that Miss Pushpa belongs to a reputed family and her father was a renowned advocate in Bulsar and Surat, but presently he does not remember the correct place. So this is regarding the stanza 3, and this stanza is regarding the details of her family, in which she comes from a reputed family, and also her father was a renowned advocate in Surat, and also currently the narrator of this poem does not remember the correct place, exact place of her family. So in this stanza also we have some minor mistakes in these lines. From the second line in this stanza, from high family. So from very high family is not at all a good form of use of words, and it can be replaced by the term reputed family. And also the last line is not at all appropriate in this poem, in which I am not remembering now which place. So basically these lines indicate the ordinary use of English, especially by this specific category of these people, and this also satirizes how they use the English in a very pathetic manner, in which they do not consider the appropriate use of grammar, then the word order, and also the appropriate use of this poetic words, devices, and all things, not at all the word order and the grammar. This is not at all a very good manner or the good form of poem, in which the words are irregular and the meaning conveys in a very good manner, or as a narrative, but we can see that it is not at all a good form of poem while we discuss this poem. Then moving to the next stanza, stanza 4, from the line Surat as to the that was long time ago. These lines, in this line, which is stanza 4, Surat as once only I stayed in Surat with the family members of my uncle's very old friend. His wife was cooking nicely. That was long time ago. So this is regarding the stanza 4, and in these lines also we have some mistakes, in which the cooking nicely, which can be replaced by the term cooked. So the terms we can it is only the only a good amount of words in order to replace these inappropriate words in this poem. So in this stanza 4, in these lines the fun is made of the wayward mind of the speaker, who forgets the occasion and start talking about his days in Surat with the family of his uncle's old friend. So the narrator is speaking about himself or his experience in Surat, and he deviates from the main topic, which is the farewell party to this Miss Pushpa T.S. And the speaker is informed by someone in audience that the place was Surat, and he remembers and talks about his experience in Surat. And in the following lines, the speaker's digression to Miss Pushpa's father, and hanging on it, the speaker's connection to Surat, and then to his or her uncle's very old friend and his wife there are typical of the unprepared, spontaneous speech and the characteristic of many Indians who lack propriety in such grave formal functions. So in these lines, it signifies the some drawbacks of this narrator, in which he talks about his experience in Surat, and he just deviates from this farewell party, and he talks about his experience in Surat, especially regarding the family, in which his uncle's very old friend, who the wife of this old friend was a very good cook. So and some experience in that while he was in Surat. So all these details comes in this stanza 4. So basically this stanza is regarding the narrator itself, not about this Miss Pushpati. Yes. So his experience about while he was in Surat. So this is the major things in this stanza 4. So now we are moving to the next stanza, which is stanza 5, from lines 26 to 28, which is the lines from coming back to ladies also. So this is very short lines from the lines 25 to 26 to 28. Coming back to Miss Pushpa, she is most popular lady with men also and ladies also. So this is regarding the Miss Pushpa TS. So we are back to the track, in which coming back to Miss Pushpa TS, she is most popular lady with men also and ladies also. So regarding her popularity in her office, he talks about her popularity in her office. Then in this line, after the diversion from the topic of his speech, the speaker goes back to Miss Pushpa. He says that she is very popular with both men and women. It is obvious in the lines that Nissimesi Gales is ridiculing the amusing and ungrammatical speech of Indians and their sentimental, exaggerated way of speaking. So in these lines also, the poet just ridicules the amusing, the ungrammatical speech of the Indians and their sentimental, exaggerated way of speaking. So it is also a form of satire, a form of fun in this line, in which it's very short. The stanza 5 is very short, in which after the diversion from the topic of his speech, the narrator goes back to Miss Pushpa, and he says only one good point regarding Miss Pushpa, in which she is very popular with both men and women, which means that she was very popular in that office. And the lines, the structure of this poem is not at all good. It is repeating again and again, in which this is basically to satirize the use of the ordinary use of the English by the people in this country. So this is regarding the basics of this stanza 5. Now we are moving to the stanza 6 from lines 29 to 34, page number 18 in the textbook. In the lines stanza 6 from 29 to 34, whenever to saying no in the page number 18. So this lines goes like this: whenever I asked her to do anything, she was saying, just now only I will do it. That is showing good spirit. I am always appreciating the good spirit. So this is regarding the another good feature of this character, who is Miss Pushpa TS, and the narrator says that the praising his subordinate by saying that she was in good nature, and she would never say no to the work assigned to her, and this shows that she has a good spirit and her readiness to do any work, and she was a very willing worker. And the unnecessary use of just and only exhibits the speaker's ignorance of the usage of English words, creating laughter and fun. So in these lines also we have two terms, which is just and only, which is not at all appropriate in this poem. So in these lines the narrator continues the praising his subordinate, who is Miss Pushpa, and the speaker goes ahead and praises her good nature, and she would never say no to the good, work assigned to her. So it is a very good characteristics of this character, Miss Pushpa, in which she never says no to the work assigned to her, and this shows that she has a good spirit and her readiness to do any work. So this is regarding this stanza 6 in this poem, and we are moving to the next stanza, which is regarded as the last stanza from the lines 35 to 42, the concluding part of this poem. So in these lines, the poem goes like this. Miss Pushpa is never saying no. Whatever I or anybody is asking, she is always saying yes, and today she is going to improve her prospects, and we are wishing her bon voyage. And now I ask other speakers to speak, and afterwards Miss Pushpa will do the summing up. So this is regarding the concluding part of this poem, in which the first two lines is regarding the good spirit of Miss Pushpa, yes, and she is always saying yes, and today she is going. So the day she is departing from from this office, she is today she is going to improve her prospects, and we are wishing her bon voyage. So another term, the bon voyage, is repeating again in order to get in order to wish her happy journey. So it is not at all appropriate in these lines, and in these lines the poem says that the narrator says that she was always ready to help whenever asked by him or any other colleague, and today the speaker and the other colleagues have gathered to wish her happy journey as she is going abroad to improve her prospects. After this speech is over, the speaker asks other speakers to speak and says that Ms. Pushpa will sum up after the colleague's speech. So at the end of this poem, from the lines 40 to 43, so the poet says that now I ask the speakers to speak, and afterwards Ms. Pushpa will do the summing up. So it is just like a vote of thanks or the farewell speech by Ms. Pushpa at the end, after speaking all the colleagues in that office regarding Ms. Pushpa. So the narrator invites the other colleagues in order to speak about this character who is Ms. Pushpa yes, at the end of the poem, and he also says that at the end she will deliver the farewell speech or the vote of thanks at the end of this their meeting. So this is basically a meeting, the farewell party or the farewell meeting to Ms. Pushpa yes, and at the end the introductory speech by the speaker comes to an end, and he invites the other colleagues in order to speak about or in order to give a good speech about this Ms. Pushpa yes, who is going abroad from this office. So this is regarding the poem, which is Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa yes. We can divide this poem into mainly 7 stanzas, and it is consists of about 43 lines. So in these lines we can get a clear narration about this farewell party, as well as we get a clear satire or the ordinary use of the Indian English in this poem. By it is very humorous way the poet writes which is in a very humorous way. So this is regarding this poem, and we are going to analyze this poem in the very good manner. So the analysis of this poem, we can see that the narrator uses the Babu English, which can be considered as a mix of English and Hindustani. So the term Babu English means it is a mix of the English and Hindustani, and for example, for this use of this Babu English, the ample use of the ing and funny terms like 2-3 days, and what sweetness is Miss Pushpa, external and internal sweetness, smiling and smiling simply because she is feeling, etc. So all these words or all these sentences which indicates the use of this Babu English in this poem. And with the help of this using this Babu English, the narrator is trying to exaggerate to show his love and respect for Miss Pushpa, and such kind of exaggeration is quite common in Hindustani and even an important part of Indian culture. The tone of the poem is hilarious, however mocking is destitute. So this is regarding this some important aspects of this poem in a very analytical manner, and this poem is considered as a mellow assault on Indian English speakers, and this poem may be straightforward, yet it talks about a genuine subject. The tradition of overpraising the one who is about to leave or retire is common in India. So it is very common use of tradition in which overpraising the one who is about to leave or retire from an office. So this comes in this poem too, in which some points or some good amount of words are used to overpraise this Miss Pushpa DS. So this is regarding this poem, and the artist utilizes the pidgin or the colloquial English as it satisfies the requirement for an exceptional dialect in a bilingual circumstance, and the artist could likewise mirror the idealite highlights of English utilized by the speakers of various local dialects. And the poem starts with the present continuous tense as to the ridiculing of Indian speakers, which can be seen throughout the poem. So this poem is written in the tense, which specifically the present continuous tense or the present progressive tense, and it is only to give a clear idea regarding the use of English by the Indian speakers, and the speaker and the gathering of speaker at the goodbye party doesn't realize that his English is linguistically wrong. So all the audience in this in this particular office, they are accepting the speech in which from their face we can just narrate this incident in which in an office the speaker is talking about the Miss Pushpa DS who is going to be retired or going to another place from their office. So he is talking in a very good manner as for this audience, but for us it is not at all good, and the inappropriate use of the word order and the ungrammatical things, all these things makes this poem which is not at all good in our first impression. But while focusing on the objective or the intention of this poem, in which this poem is only to show the ordinary use of English by the Hindustanis in a very satirical manner, in a very hilarious manner. So this is at that while considering that intention, it is good in its structure. And the poet ridicules how semi-taught Indians talk or compose the English dialect, and he also gives some example for this by giving the terms which is commonly used by Indians, in which the smiling, which is not at all a appropriate term in this while using the English, and it is we can see that it is a present continuous tense of the word smile. So this poem is very typical in its nature, and the poem is very interesting, and the writer impersonates the Indian method for communicating in English with such a significant number of deficiencies. Hence the poem is all about the use of English by Indians and the reflection of their culture in their expression. So this is regarding this poem, in which we can see that the first of all the ordinary use of English by the Indians, and also the ungrammatical and the disorder of these words, and the faulty word order, and the use of inappropriate idioms, phrases, etc. So these are the major things in this poem, and this poem is considered as it is a very typical monologue, and it is a satire on this ordinary use of English by Indians. So this is regarding this just an analysis to this poem, and we can go through the the events or the description of this poem or the narration of this poem in 8 points. So these 8 points means it gives a clear idea regarding this poem itself. So we are going to discuss this poem in a very simple manner. So it is divided into 8 points. So the first point is that a meeting is arranged to give a send-off party to Miss Pushpa T.S., who is going abroad within 2 or 3 days, and the narrator is delivering the introductory speech. So this is the first event or the first aspect of this poem. The second thing is that the speaker describes the good qualities of the character of Miss Pushpa. She is always friendly and jovial with her handsome ways and winsome manners. So this is regarding the second point of this poem. And going to the third point of this major outline of this poem, the speaker further gives more biographical details of Pushpa, which is the family, the background of her family. She belongs to the very high family. Her father was a reputed advocate in Bulsar or Surat, but the speaker doesn't remember her father's name. And in the next point is that the speaker only remembers that he had stayed in Surat once with the family of his uncle's friend, but it was long ago. Then the another point is that from this digression of this speaker comes back to the present topic. Miss Pushpa is most popular among her friends. So there is a slight deviation in this narration in which the narrator himself talks about his experience in Surat, and again in the next following lines he come back to this specific farewell party, and he says that Miss Pushpa is most popular among her friends. And the following lines we can see that she is always obliging. The speaker appreciate her good spirit. So she is very thankful, or she is very good in his character, in which she has a good spirit to take the responsibilities and to provide the necessary actions for their works. So this is regarding the another aspect of this poem. And the concluding line of this poem, the poet says that she never says no, where she is always prepared to help the others. The speaker feels the agony of leave taking and leaves for abroad, looking forward for better prospects in her life. The speaker wishes her bon voyage, which is means the happy journey to this Miss Pushpa T.S., and he asks others to speak, and then Miss Pushpa will reply. So this is regarding the concluding of this poem. So thus we can go through this poem in a very systematic manner by going through these 8 points. So this is regarding this poem, and then analyze this poem. And we have some more topics in this poem, in which the themes and the other important things of this poem. So first we discuss the themes of this poem. So the first theme in this poem is the human foibles. So the human foibles means the use of imperfection, the imperfection of use of the words, the language, words, expressions, feelings, etc. So this is a very important theme in this poem, and we can see that human foibles means the principal theme in this goodbye party for Miss Pushpa T.S. is in the loss of companion, and it's the human foibles or the character faults. So as indicated by the Dominic, who is regarded as the narrator, we can see that in the textbook or in the poem it is regarded as the unnamed narrator. So in some notes it is clear that the name of this narrator is Dominic. So we can see only focus on the narrator, who is the unnamed narrator or speaker of this poem, and this is prominent theme among the Ezekiel works. And the poet offers a satirical look to how some individuals in India English who speak the English, he misuses the present continuous tense and uses turns of phrases and syntax, and the way they found in the Indian dialect. For example, Ezekiel, the poet writes that the whatever I or anyone is asking, she is always saying yes. So it is not at all a good form or the good structure of a line. Then the poem also hints at a dramatic incongruity when the speaker and the crowd at the goodbye party doesn't realize that his English is grammatically incorrect. So it is also another important fact regarding this poem. So the first theme in this, the major theme in this poem is the human foibles, which means that the imperfection, the use of the faulty expressions, language, word order, grammar, all about the imperfection in this poem. So this is the major theme in this poem, human foibles. Then the second major theme in this poem is the satire on Indian English. So it is also another important theme in this poem, in which this poem is a satirical poem by the poet Nazim Ezekiel, and he satirized the way in which the Indians speak in English through this poem. And this is noticeable in the use of the present continuous tense, where simple present tense should be the form. And Ezekiel is masterful in observing these peculiarities of Indian English and transferring them effortlessly into his poetry. So this is just an his effort in order to show or to implement the use of this improper use of this English by Indians by writing this poem, and they make his poems humorous and enjoyable to read. So these things we can see that it is just fun or the humor sense of this poem, and it is also enjoyable to read. So this is regarding this poem, which is regarded as a satire on Indian English. So we just discussed about the first major two themes of this poem, which is the first one was the human foibles, which is the imperfection, use of the the faulty languages. Second one was the satire on Indian English. So regarding the satire on Indian English, it is regarded as a very important theme. So we can go through some points regarding the satire on this satire in this poem. So Nazim Ezekiel, the poet of this poem, also satirizes certain Indian customs too, which includes the tradition and manners in the poem, and also it is the full form of the dramatic monologue. So basically this is a dramatic monologue, and he satirizes not only the ordinary use of the Indian English, he also satirizes the certain Indian customs, traditions and manners with the help of this specific incident or the narration of this speech, introductory speech to this farewell party to Miss Pushpati. And regarding this poem is in free verse, typical of modern poetry. So the most of the modern poems during that age was written in free verse. So this poem also which qualifies this structure of this free verse. The third point regarding this poem is that the speaker stands for every speaker in Indian context. So the speaker is an example or just an ideal for all the Indian speaker, especially while using the Indian English in a very typical manner. And the fourth point is that he uses free and broken language to share the views and emotions. So with the help of this free and broken language, the poet gives some another important aspect in which he shares the views and emotion with the help of this faulty language. So it is also another important thing regarding this poem. And the other important point regarding this poem is that the poet mocks at a literal translation. So the use of the literal translation is also just like a mocking of this Indian English, in which 2-3 days it is an example for this mock of this literal translation. And the other point is that the way of unfolding parody is not at all the use of using the indefinite articles. So very high family is not at all a good amount of words, sentence in which we can use by very high family instead of this term. We can use the reputed family and the renowned advocate. All these things which means unfolding parody, which is the way of not using using the indefinite articles in this poem. The another important point regarding the poem is that it is a social satire on speech which is delivered on an occasion when all praise the good-natured, helpful and sacrificial attitude and leadership qualities of the person. So all the farewell parties is regarded as just like this, in which to praise the good-natured, helpful and sacrificial attitude and leadership qualities of the person who is going to depart from their office. The another important thing regarding this poem is that the poet has not given a definite identity to the speaker. So he is not giving a clear idea regarding the speaker or the narrator, and we do not know whether it is male or female speaker. So while using some terms or some lines, we can by analyzing some line, we can see that this is a male speaker, and Nissim Ezekiel, by hiding this identity of the speaker, renders the mistakes to every Indian in general. So there is another important aspect in which the poet hiding the identity of speaker in order to get or in order to render the mistakes to every Indian in general. So this is regarding the major points while discussing this poem, analyzing this poem. So we are going to conclude this poem in a very short manner. So in a very short sentence, we can see that this poem is a parody of an Indian speech. It is a satirical of the manners of Indian educated people, and also the whole poem is a comic in nature, and the speaker's words make us laugh, and the parody includes the irony, vague speech and literal translation, the use of present progressive and Babu English in this poem. So these are the major aspects while we conclude this poem, in which this is basically a parody of an Indian English. Secondly, Indian English speech. Secondly, it is a satirical of the manners of Indian educated people. Thirdly, the whole poem is comic in nature. And the fourth point is that the speaker's words make us laugh in a sense. And also the fifth point is that the parody, which is this poem, includes the irony, vague speech and the literal translation. And also the last point is that the use of present progressive or the present continuous tense and the Babu English in this poem. So with that we can conclude this poem in a very good manner. So this is regarding this poem, which is Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. And there are some possible questions from this chapter, which includes what is this poem about, and which is the most striking image and why, and comment on the theme of this poem. So all these topics we discussed in this class. So go through all these topics and try to prepare the notes based on these questions, and go through the textbook page number 16 to 90 and also 20, which includes the questions in the textbook itself. So this is regarding this poem, which is a poem by Nissim Ezekiel, which is a typical Indian poem, which shows the unnatural way of use of Indian English in a very typical different manner. So this is regarding this poem, Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S., which is a farewell party to this main character, who is Miss Pushpa T.S. And the narrator is regarded as a unnamed narrator, who is maybe a male character, who delivers an introductory speech regarding this for this farewell party, farewell meeting, and at the end he invites the others to speak about this Miss character, who is Miss Pushpa T.S., and also at the end he invites Miss Pushpa T.S. in order to deliver the concluding speech or the vote of thanks by this Miss Pushpa T.S., which is considered as the farewell message by Miss Pushpa T.S. So this is regarding this poem. So that's for today. Thank you.